Welcome to Seeing with Your Soul, the podcast aimed to inspire you to find your voice and become the best, truest, and most authentic version of yourself. Spiritually intimate, soul-to-soul conversations, life-changing insights, and spiritual teaching and healing. Real, raw, unfiltered. Join your host, Tisha Michelle.
Welcome back to Seeing with Your Soul with me, your host, Tisha Michelle. Hello. All right, so you already know, unless you don't know, now you're about to know. Around here, I definitely love to start off by expressing gratitude. So in this present moment, I am grateful for recognizing my growth. And why I say that, sometimes it's easy to think that you're in the same spot as before, and it becomes harder, especially if you feel like things aren't going your way. It becomes a lot harder to see that you've actually grown. And this time, 2 years ago, your response would have been different, per se or whatever, right? So for me, there was a while, it was a long period of time where I really didn't even recognize my growth. Honestly, I wasn't even thinking about growing. I was just thinking about surviving, just making it to the next damn day. And I got that off my plate. Ain't got to do that again for another couple weeks or whatever it just may be. And now it's to remind myself of my growth is awesome, where I do it intentionally. And I reflect back on the years, or I reflect back on the last, 6 months or whatever the case it may be, just to look to say, not necessarily of what I might have that's a physical or materialistic thing, but actually just being able to see the growth of my feelings, my emotions, my am I responding to people or am I reacting, right? So just recently I had to meet with someone, and instantly it made me feel uncomfortable. It was definitely an uncomfortable within my own self, being uncomfortable and does this mean I gotta sell myself to someone? Fuck that shit. I ain't trying to prove nothing to nobody. That's just the mentality. And that does apply, but it doesn't apply to every situation. So, when I was meeting this person and he asked me a question, and it was a personal question, but very valid to what's going on. So fair enough for him to ask that. And I answered it very honestly. And he was like, thank you. He was like, I really appreciate that. He was like, thank you. He appreciated me being honest and not lying about it. Right. And when it was all said and done and was over, the whole meeting was over, and I'm driving and I'm reflecting, and I said, holy shit, I did not feel uncomfortable answering that question. Oh my God. I'm not ashamed, or I'm not embarrassed, or whatever fake, feelings and stuff. I mean, they were valid at the time, but they weren't really valid. It was me being hard on myself. So when I can recognize my growth, I think it's so dope. I was super hyped the whole day. I was like, oh my gosh, I did it. And the energy that we're in right now is the full moon in Taurus. And I'm actually, my zodiac sign is a Taurus. So it's in my sign. And it was also with the eclipse, the partial lunar eclipse. And that energy is also highlighting the things that need to be clipped out of your life. Right. And that is a lot of times it's the beliefs, right? It's this belief. And there's a reoccurring theme, about something. I can't really go into all of it. Well, this will definitely be documented in a podcast when I talked about what it is that I'm working on now. I just got to get everything to be in place. So before I start speaking on the different parts, I want to tell the whole story, which will be soon. Okay, so where was I? Y'all know I'll be getting distracted real quick and having a blank. But anyway, so there's been this reoccurring theme, and I just haven't learned my lesson, and I'm very much aware of it. So remember, with awareness comes change. With change comes growth, right? So once you become aware of something, you absolutely know that it can change, but you got to do the work and you got to take the action for it to change. And then once that thing has changed, then this is how you can see also that you are growing. So there is something that I've been repeating. I'm very much aware of it. I just haven't taken the action to well, the action that I was taking for it just hasn't been the best thing. And it's time for me to remove that thought and that belief and adapt a new one. So that's what's been coming up for me with this full moon, is being faced with these things that I should have dealt with 3-4 years ago. And I knew it, and I just chose a different route. And now here it is, like, hey, it's me again. What you gonna do about it, right? So having that conversation with this man, and just putting that out there, and not feeling uncomfortable about it is just so dope, man. Really think about it. Like when you think about like your growth, like let's just do like an activity where instead of looking at the growth of like, okay, I got my own car, I got my own place, I started this business, and let's push that to the side. We're not taking any energy away from that because all of that is amazing. But let's look at the growth of how we reacted to something, or how we were okay with being ourselves and being honest and owning that, and not feeling embarrassed or ashamed or less than, or like you're not worthy or whatever. Look at that and see where you've grown. Like just being able to hold on to that is so dope. On my way to go and have this meeting, I was feeling nervous, and just like I tell my clients, I have to, talk to myself on that sense too, and say that nervousness that we feel, it's literally just an energy. Everything is energy, but it's up to us what we do with that energy, right? So if you're feeling like nervous and you're about to go and do something, have a conversation, or get up on stage and you got to speak or something, like what are you going to do with that energy? Are you going to like shake that energy and let it just hype you up? Like, yo, this is something new I'm about to do, but I know I'm about to crush this shit. Or are you just going to take that energy and just turn it into this nervousness that you just sit there saying, who do I think I am? I'm not going to be able to do this. And then you just freeze and you don't even go up there, or you go up and you don't say anything. It's up to us what we do with that energy. So as I'm driving and I'm feeling that, I'm like, okay, it's up to you, Tisha. What you going to do with this energy? What are we doing here? What's the problem? And I'm driving, this is what I'm thinking. And all I kept hearing was just be yourself. And I'm like, no. As I'm having this conversation, I'm like, okay, so do I tune into his energy? You're going to give me so I know what to say and guide my words and all this fancy whole thing that I'm looking for to be downloaded or to be given or see a sign or whatever. And all I keep hearing is just be yourself. I'm like, that's it? Fuck it. All right. And I didn't think no more about it. And I drive out there and we go and we have this meeting. And the first thing that he says to me is, he's like, I just want to commend you. He's like, before we get started with this meeting, I just want to just commend you and just say that I think that this is amazing, what it is that you're seeking to do. And then I can't say because then I'd be talking about what it is. But I promise, for those of you that actually do care, I will share it with you guys. And I will share it with you from two perspectives: the perspective of me just being like hella fucking proud of myself, right? And then also from the perspective of showing the steps and the different things that you too can also do to seek something that you're desiring. So, I'm going to wrap it up and bring it into a way to be sharing my story and sharing my experience, but also in a teaching way, right? So yeah, so just being able to recognize my growth is just fucking dope, right? Just dope. All right, so your turn. Unless you're driving or operating some heavy machinery, I want you guys to close your eyes. And let's just get centered some. So I just want you to take a nice deep breath, and you're just going to breathe in through your nose and just let it out through your mouth. And let's take another nice deep breath, breathing in through your nose. And just let it out through your mouth. And one more. Another nice deep breath, breathing in through your nose. And letting it out through your mouth. Yes, and yes. All right, what are you guys grateful for? And when I was talking about the growth and explaining what how I was, recognizing that growth, as I was talking about that, what thoughts were popping in your head? What's coming to your mind now? Or have you been overlooking the fact that the way that you react to something now is not by a reaction, it's by a response? Is there a situation that you were just put in that before would have made you feel really uncomfortable about yourself, and you felt like you should be doing better? And then when you shared what that was, it just felt fine because you've made peace, with your shadow. What were some of those things that were coming up for you? Write them down so you can have something to look back and to remind yourself of your actual growth, right? Because growth does go beyond the physical things that we're doing, and situations like, yeah, I remember when I was making this much and now I'm making this much. But when I lived in this size place, or I slept on this couch, and then now I have my own apartment. And those are all wonderful and dope accomplishments. Just also add into the part of where you aren't ashamed of choices and the experiences you had in your life. You are comfortable with just being yourself. You are comfortable with being honest, and then we say, well, you should always be honest. And sometimes we may lie in certain situations, or it's because we're embarrassed. It's not because we did something wrong. We're just embarrassed, or we're just like ashamed. And I look at that, when we're ashamed of those choices and stuff that we've made in our life, we're just really just being ashamed of a part of ourselves. And that's not nice. It's not nice. So yeah. So what are you grateful for in this present moment? Express, express, express. All right. So when the love for someone else trumps your own self-love. So this was actually triggered. So those of you that stay in the entertainment news and stuff, you do, and if you don't, you'll still understand what I'm talking about. It was the baby, and Danny Lee. And this podcast was triggered through that experience that they were having that was shared with the whole world, right? So, long story short, they were together or whether they were together, they're not together. But she had a baby by him. And I think the baby's like 3 months old, or at the time of everything, 3 months old, right? So they get on to an Instagram live, or he gets on Instagram live, and I guess she claps back or she responds back or whatever. So the part that started and triggered this was she was on there, and she was actually, you know what? Let me back up. So I did see it. I did see the live that was on there, and my heart hurt for so many different reasons. And then somebody shared this post, and the post was something, I don't remember exactly what it said, but it basically just said that people that are laughing at the Danny Lee situation, I don't find anything funny about it at all. And I shared that, and then I put my own comment onto there, and I said something to the fact of yeah, there's absolutely nothing funny about this at all. And like, when the love for someone else trumps your own self-love. And I don't remember what else I put. But anyway, so I shared that with my own caption to it. And I had a lot of you, message me about that. People were like, right, it's not funny. My heart hurts. Like, this makes me sad. Like, I've been there before. And then people were actually, we actually had some conversations, in there about that, and people sharing their stories. So that was how this was triggered. And I said, I want to get on here and I want to talk about this with you guys. And so anyhow, so Danny Lee, she gets onto there after he's filming her, because I guess he tells her to get out, right? He tells her her and her child to leave. And for those of you who are aware of it or even kept up with everything, and I don't know everything, so let's just take away, I don't care what she did. Right. When I want to say I don't care, meaning just for this topic that we're talking about, because I do think that the respect and the love and all those things needs to be, or should be, or I would like it to be, a mutual thing where no one's disrespecting anyone, and we're all just understanding that we're little girls and little boys that's dealing with some form of trauma that was never healed. And now we're reacting based off of that, and we just out here just spiraling out of control. Right. So when I say I don't care, meaning like I just want to remove all of that and just talk about this portion. So he tells her to leave. She's like, I'm not trying to leave. Whatever basic part she was saying, she wasn't like, leaving. How is he going to put me and my daughter out, or our daughter out, blah, 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 blah. So he's filming her, and she keeps trying to go into different rooms and just like basically like, leave me alone. And he's just still antagonizing Is that the word? Yeah, her. And instantly in that part, watching it, it triggered me. It reminded me of a relationship that I was in. And I remember just like not even just wanting to keep the peace and don't even want to argue no more and just go to a different room of the house, go to somewhere else, and you just keep following and start and start. And when you push, you push, you push, I'm definitely going to push back, and I'm going to push back fucking hard. Right. And it's not too many people that I'll just keep taking, right, in the sense. And I was in this relationship and I'm like, you know what? We had kids, you might act crazy, I don't even want to have to deal with all of this, so just fuck it. What's that thing, be the bigger person bullshit, right? Being the bigger person. So when I'm seeing that and I'm seeing in her face, like she's literally like, just leave me alone. And I've been there before, so that was definitely like a trigger of like, yo, why don't you just leave her alone? Just leave us alone, whoever it is, right? Just chill, in that sense. Well, then she gets on to another live and she's crying. And she literally begs God to like take this away so she could stop loving this man. And then my heart was just fucking done. I'm not even gonna lie, no cap. I was like borderline depressed over that shit. That I just was like, I just want to be in the bed and just put the covers over my head. And so then when people are responding to me and we're having conversations back and forth, and one person was telling me that she has 4 kids by someone, and she was talking about how when they broke up, and I think I don't remember how long they were together or whatever, but like now she had not any, she told him she has a boyfriend, and the boyfriend doesn't want the guy coming over to the house. So she has to leave, like herself. She has to leave out to meet him somewhere to take the kids. And she said that, when she can't do it or something is going on like with herself, she just cancels and says that they can't go. And so upon talking to her, and she was saying like she knows that it's wrong, it's not right, but she wants to keep the peace at home, even though that there's nothing that this person did, like to her or anything. And so we're having this conversation, and it was a little more deeper in a sense, but she recognized what she's doing. So when I talk about, when the love for someone else trumps your own self-love, right? So with this person that we were talking to in my DMs, and I did tell her that I was going to talk about this, but of course not say who it is. I never say who the person is. But anyhow, so it's the same thing, is that she wants to be loved so bad that she's willing to sacrifice her own self-love, right? She knows she's doing something that she doesn't value, and she knows that it's wrong, but she also knows that it's affecting another person, another parent, and also affecting her kids. But she just wants this relationship to work so bad that she's willing to do that, right? So then you think when the Danny Lee situation, there was a part where she said that, the whole time she was pregnant, he wasn't there. And here it is 3 months now, the baby is born. So apparently he had to, again, I don't know all their details, but somehow he had to come around in a sense to have them staying with him, right? So there was the red flags already. He wasn't there for the pregnancy out of her own mouth, the way she said it. And again, don't quote me on everything, y'all. But there was a portion where she said that. So those red flags were already there. But you want to be loved so bad that you're willing to ignore the red flags. You're willing to ignore all of that. You're willing to hurt other people in the process because you want to be loved so bad that you let the love for someone else with this hopes of being loved trump everything. Right? So it's when the love for someone else trumps our own self-love, we really cause our own pain. So it's not to say that you deserve this, or Danny Lee deserves this, or all these other people deserve it, or I deserved it. However, what we are doing is causing that self-inflicting pain, right? So it's like you get the cut on your arm and you see it starting to heal, but then you go and you pick the scab. And what happens when you pick that scab if it isn't already healed? It starts bleeding, right? And it hurts. And now you're starting this process all over again. Shit, I shouldn't have messed with it. Right? So if you love yourself truly, why are you causing self-inflicted pain? Why are you picking at that scab knowing that it's not healed yet? And now you got to start all over. So it's like that when we're not loving ourselves, and what we're doing is we're loving someone else way more than ourselves, that we cause this self-inflicted pain. So there's so many people that were saying things like, oh, she already knew from the beginning. Oh, that's what you get. Like, that's what you get because you was messing with him when he was messing with his other baby mother. And then you did this song. And then it's all this judgmental shit. All this judgmental shit. We don't know a person's history in their childhood. I don't know Danny Lee's childhood, but I can promise you that a lot of this stems from her childhood. It stems from your childhood. So there's somewhere in her life where she wasn't feeling loved and she was seeking that love, and she just wants to get it from wherever it's going to come. So yeah, you might not have been here through the pregnancy. Oh, but you want me now? Oh, I'm coming. You want me now? Oh, for sure. I'm going to be there. I'm going to forget about what happened before because I just want you to love me because I love you. Right? And you're loving that person more than you love yourself. And in that process, you cause that self-inflicting pain. So yeah, so I had, some people sending me messages about things, and it just turned into this whole thing about like dating and like the relationships and just, and I love when people, respond and they have those type of conversations with me because you're trusting me. Right. And you feel comfortable enough to have that conversation and to talk about things that may be a part of your shadow side, things you're not, proud of, and to put into that, in that sense. So I definitely don't take that, lightly. I'm very appreciative of you guys, anybody that has those type of conversations with me. But I was looking and I said, when I was so sad about the Danny Lee, I said, am I sad about her or am I sad about me? Like, what is all these different like emotions? But what it was I really just see was that I'm sad for all of us. Anyone that's ever been in a situation where they didn't truly love and value themselves and they put more into another person. And in that process, causes self-inflicting pain on themselves and then live with the regrets afterwards and not healing from that portion. You know what I mean? You've been there before where, if you really break it down and you really think about it, like you love someone so much that you just went against yourself. You went against yourself versus allowing that cut on your arm to actually heal. And what does that look like? That looks like looking back into like your childhood, looking at asking yourself what does love mean to me? And then when you write down what that is or you say it out loud, then ask yourself, is that my definition of love or is that someone else's definition of love? What does self-love mean to me? Do I feel like I love myself? Do you feel uncomfortable if I say, oh, you don't love yourself enough, you love somebody else more? Some people actually admit it. They be like, yo, I love that man more than I love myself. And when they say it, they don't realize what they're actually really saying is that you should always love yourself first. Like, what's up with that, right? But again, how we were raised and different things that's come up, right? And you have some people, like I said, that will say it. And they're just like, yeah, that's just like what that is. And they don't see that branch of like, I guess maybe like pain, because really, why are you thinking that you don't deserve love or you don't deserve something more than what it is that you're getting? So when she, meaning Danny Lee, was crying and she was begging, she literally begged God to help her to stop loving this man. I felt that shit. And anybody else that watched that and seen it, yeah, you had to have felt that. Because if you listen to one of my recent episodes when we're talking about the soul loves attachment, we get attached to a person so deep. In a sense, it's like you're praying to take those feelings away because you don't feel like you can just do it on your own, right? And I felt like that was so real of her. While I don't, my personal opinion, condone people getting onto the internet to express themselves and to put it all out there, I'm not going to judge you in that sense because you get to express yourself however you want. I just think that, I know, once you put it out there, you open yourself up to a whole bunch of other people and different things. And that could create a lot with your psyche unless you take your comments off and stuff. But anyway, I think even with that and seeing that vulnerability and understanding that she can't do this alone, and which is why she prayed to God for this. And that to me, I felt like was real talk, was like, yo, I can't do this shit on my own, because who's to say she's not going to be right back with him? Right? So until we start loving ourselves more than we love the next person, we can definitely expect to see some self-inflicted pain, because we'll ignore the red flags. We'll ignore those things just because we want to be loved. Right? Versus loving ourselves. And easier said than done, right? It can be, especially when you haven't recognized that you haven't been showing yourself any love, because you've just been accepting anything and everything, seeking out this love. I definitely challenge you to get clear on what your definition of love is. What does that look like? What does love mean to you? And if you can look at this definition that you are coming up with, and you can say, okay, this belongs to me, it doesn't belong to someone else, and I stand by this, then ask yourself, are there things and experiences in your life mimicking a foundation of love? Is this relationship that I'm in right now, is it based off a foundation of love? And what does love mean to your partner? What does that look like? This could be something you could do together. Are you even on the same page? Right? Some people feel like, oh, you love me if you're very affectionate. And if you don't show me affection, it means you don't love me. I think in one of my relationships in the beginning, that was a problem where, he felt that because I wasn't affectionate and I wasn't the let's hold hands, no cap, let's hold hands out in public, that I was embarrassed or just didn't want people to see that we were, together, as if I was ashamed or something. And that was just the complete opposite. Like, no, you my homie in a romantic way too. It was really just that I am not an affectionate person, which I also didn't get a lot of that affection as a child. So I didn't really know what that was. That was very foreign to me and very, very uncomfortable. Even saying the whole I love you thing, right? But that didn't have anything. That doesn't mean that I didn't love you. It's just that I express it differently. So I do, like I said, I challenge you to really question, what does that love mean to you? And if you are in a relationship with someone, what does love mean to them? And then not even just getting the definition, but breaking it down a little bit further and asking them, where did that come from? And these are just conversations you can just have with your partner. Okay, so what does love mean to you? What's your definition of love? And if they say oh, it's this and it's that, da da da. And then just ask them, okay, so where did that come from? Right? Was that because that's what you're seeing, your parents and these things? And you're just having a genuine conversation just to really kind of get on the same page when it comes to love. Because the thing is that in everything that we do in life, really and truly, I believe that love should be the foundation of it. But what's the reality? Most things is based off of fear. Right? There's some form of fear. So yes, okay. So it's just figuring out or asking yourself, what does love mean? And if you're with a partner, asking them to, and just kind of just digging a little bit deeper into that sense. And then if you notice, even just with me talking about this, there's scenarios that's going through your head where you're like, yeah, I knew that wasn't the best thing for me. I didn't even like it, but I did it anyway just to keep the peace. I did it anyway just to make them happy. I did it, into those things. Really ask yourself, why did you do that? Why do you feel that another person is more important than you and your happiness? Now, do I believe that there's things that we can compromise on in this sense? Yeah, because I think sometimes it's like I hated football. I could not stand that shit for nothing. Like if I would flip to it and I'd see it was on TV, it just made me fucking depressed. I don't even know why. I was such a weirdo. So I didn't like football, but what my ex loves football. It's huge, 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 huge in football. Everything is football. And if that football is on, that's it. That's all you're watching. That's just what it is. No attention or nothing. It's just what it is. That was his thing. So I decided, you know what? I want to learn about football so I can relate to him with something that he loves. So see, that's not anything harmful. Me learning about football or watching football and understanding what these things mean is not harmful to me. I didn't like it, but I didn't have no reason not to like it because it wasn't like there was something happened. It was a trauma and I just can't stand any of that. There wasn't. So there are things that we can do to go for like the other person, but they're not harmful. It's not harmful. So me actually learning about football for that reason actually birthed my love and passion for football. Like I'm a diehard, like what's up? Like football. My son played it. In high school and college, thought he was going to go all the way, but he decided that college, wasn't his thing. It's okay. He's living in Hawaii right now, living his best life. I love it. But I watch football. Like I can talk it. I can have the conversation with you, around it. I got, I love it. So that was great. But what was harmful to me was when I was in a relationship and I'm not speaking my mind and I'm not speaking my truth and I'm just being quiet just to keep the peace and just to be the better person, but knowing the things that I wanted to say or the way that I felt were actually very valid for me. And I just kept quiet until I pushed back. And then my mouth is real reckless, right? I'm the bad person. Then I'm feeling bad for things that I said, where in actuality, all I had to do was just speak up for myself. Or making excuses around things like, well, I don't care. I need to be able to take care of this on my own, but just trying to cope with not being disappointed. So once again, it was just like, my love not necessarily was a love for another person that trumped my own self-love. It was my love for an idea of something trumped my own self-love. Here's this idea of high school sweethearts and having kids and living happily ever after, right? So it wasn't necessarily that my love for him in that relationship would trump the love for my own self-love, like for just me as in Tisha. It was the love of this idea, of this illusion I had in my head. So I could relate on so many ways to Danny Lee and to the other ladies that were me the different things that they were that they've experienced because they just wanted to be loved by this, by someone else. They just wanted to be loved and they were willing to accept any and anything as long as they can get this idea of love or what that is. Right? So definitely a tough thing that I see with a lot of people where it just comes back to we don't love ourselves enough. And we need to change that. Each and every one of you needs to change that. And again, it doesn't have to just be the love for the person. It could be the idea of something and you just want that. Me personally, I was the one that just says that, yeah, you need to stick it out and you need to be together because you have kids and it's for the kids. I believed that for a very, 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 a lot of years. And then I snapped and was like, holy shit, this actually can make it worse for them. Right. And once again, then you're sacrificing your happiness and the love, for yourself, just to keep the peace for the children. But once again, we're saying like, oh, everyone else is more important than us. Versus looking at it as like, wait a minute, like I understand and I want this, for our family and I want the kids to have the 2-parent, household and I want them to have all of that. But do I want it at the expense of my own happiness where I feel like I'm dying inside and I'm literally just existing or just hating, like, my life. And that was something that another person has said to me in a message about, that they hated their life. They hated their situation that they were in. They didn't actually go into, and they're not actually a client of my meeting. Like, this person I've never done any work with. They'll just comment on some things and send some messages and stuff. So that's where that came from. But, she said she hated her life. And she hated the situation that she put herself in. And she knows that she put herself in this situation just because she wanted to be loved. And I don't know what that situation, those things, because she didn't go into that. But it was still the underlining the theme is that we want love from someone so much that we just disregard our own. And that needs to stop. That needs to stop. So I know I've been practicing my own self-love. And that started with me getting clear, literally looking at it like, let me get my notebook out. Okay. So what areas of my life do I feel like it's not bringing me joy? Right. And then I was breaking those down, and I was looking to see how was I contributing to my lack of joy or lack of love for myself? Like what role am I playing? So when you're looking at this, it causes you to get real with yourself. Right. I remember the first time I said it to someone, I was like, yeah, you don't love yourself. And they pushed back. I was like, oh, my bad. But it was pushed back as a defense thing. But we were able to get clear and to see it into that sense. And, and she recognized that. The other day, I just had a session with a new client, and I didn't know, I actually spoke for someone's group of women. And this particular client that I had was one of them that was there. I didn't know it because I didn't know her name when I was speaking in the group. It wasn't like I knew the people's names. And she said, yeah, I was one of them that asked the question when you were talking in that group. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, refresh my memory. And then she said to me, she said, one thing that, mind you, this was in January of this year. Yeah. She said, one thing that you said to me that really stood out was you told me that I didn't love myself. And in that moment, I'm like hitting it on mute, like gulping, like awkward, right? Because I didn't know what she was going to say after. And she said, and you were so right. She said, you were so right. And then we talked about the different things and stuff. So yeah, when you really step back and you really give yourself that space and you really think about it and saying like, do I love myself? Okay, yeah, I love myself. Hell yeah, I love myself. Okay, well, you can also then look at, the area. It doesn't mean that everybody's in that space because you go to work through and you're like, yeah, I don't put anybody before me. I honor my feelings and I love myself, and that's amazing and that's great, But yeah, like if you really think about it and you break some things down, you say, well, I'm just not happy with this. Okay, well, why are you still putting up with that? Why are you still allowing that in your life? Why are you still giving that energy? And they can say, just get rid of it, just be done. Okay, might be easier said than done, but break down, well, where is the underlying fear that's stopping you from loving yourself more by releasing this? And this is how we sit here and we get honest with ourselves, right? We get honest with ourselves and say, okay, I need to start loving myself more. I need to start showing up for myself more. I need to start putting myself, first, because the way that I feel and what it is that I desire, that matters. It matters to me. And again, we're looking at this from not our ego place. We're looking from it like, yeah, we're definitely down to be compromised, right? Yo, I remember, this just made me think about this. This is when, I don't even remember when it was, but I was with my ex-husband, and he wanted to leave and go to Pennsylvania. Nothing good came from those visits going to Pennsylvania. And I remember he was at the house and his friends were there with him too. And I hear them talking and they're about to go, they're getting ready to leave to get on the road to go to Pennsylvania. This time I'm living in Virginia. But nothing was ever said to me in there until he was literally about to leave. And I remember saying to him, I was like, don't leave. Don't leave us. Don't go. And I said, let's just compromise. And then here's the compromise, right? And I said, why don't you just be here during the week and then go to Pennsylvania on the weekends? this was me trying to keep the peace. This was me trying to keep the house together, with the kids. And also I'm coming up with this compromise that I felt like, okay, I could do that. That could be a compromise. You're here during the week and you go on the weekends. Shit, I probably even thought like, shit, it gives me a break, but at least you're here, and whatever. And he decided to leave anyway and go to Pennsylvania. And he'll tell you this story because he even said it to our kids, and he says that was like the worst decision. One of the worst decisions that he ever made in his life was he should have never left. And so in that moment, when I'm still trying to keep this peace, right, and still wanting to keep this idea and this illusion of this family, right? And backstory, you have to understand also, I was 16 when we got together and got pregnant at 16, and we had our first child at 17. So in my mind, this is the high school sweetheart. And if this relationship doesn't work, then no other relationship will ever work. And that's true story. Those are words that I said many of times, because in my mind, the idea was literally we were going to get old together and we were going to die together. And I've said that. This is from teenage years. So here we are now, definitely not teenagers. And I'm saying, let's have a compromise. You stay here during the week, and then you can still go with them, on the weekends to Pennsylvania. Well, he makes this decision to leave. So in that moment, when he made that decision to leave, everything shifted within me. And at that moment, I decided that I needed to love myself more than this idea of this illusion of this family and this love with us together. And at that point, I moved and I ended up in a relationship with I have 4 kids with my son, my youngest son, with his dad. So I released something to make room for something else. Now that was that was really huge for me, just because of how long we were together and what that was. And for me to be with someone else was definitely different. Right. So when we're evaluating these things in our life, we do need to make these conscious decisions and these choices to love ourselves more before the universe forces us, right? So which ends up happening, and then it feels very painful. So when that happened and that shifted, when I wanted to make this compromise and he chose, in my mind, you chose your friends in the streets over your family. So that built that resentment towards him off the bat. Then there was also the part of the rejection, feeling like I was being rejected, right? So these are all things that were actually forced, because prior to this situation, there had been tons of red flags. There had been tons of things that I ignored and I pushed to the side, and it's just stupid, it's just whatever. And I didn't do it on my own. And then I got into this situation where it's like, no, it's not necessarily like, I do feel like I was quote unquote forced. Universe was nudging me into that sense, because he said no, he chose the opposite, but had he had said, yeah, that will work, I would have dealt with that as a compromise. But in actuality, that's not a compromise. That's a compromise that was actually hurting, versus me compromising, saying, well, I'm just going to learn football so I can have something in common with you and we can talk about it. There's nothing about that was harmful at all. There was nothing about that was harmful to him. It wasn't harmful to me, and it wasn't harmful to our son. Right. But in this situation, had he had said, yeah, that's fine, we'll do that, I'll leave on the weekends, like, what would that have looked like? That was still me putting something else before my own self. Like, is that the type of relationship that I wanted? Is that how I wanted with the kids? Like, yeah, my dad's here, Monday through Friday, but he's not on the week. Just a mess. Just a mess. Well, hopefully you understand what it is that I'm saying, and you can just evaluate some things in your life. And it might not even for you, it might even be a relationship. It could be there's a job, it could be a belief, it could be the need for like your family, where you want to work on yourself. but then you feel so obligated for your family to take care of like your family. When I say family, I don't mean like your household, like your significant other and your kids. I'm talking about mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, cousins, feeling like you have to take on everything on to them and you're putting all of them before yourself. Because you know what? You may have even heard them say, you only think about yourself. You're so selfish. So now when this person is saying that, which is actually manipulative, and they're saying that, you bought into that belief. So now you don't want to feel like that again. So now you just keep overextending yourself to everybody else and just ignoring your own self and your own love. Your love for yourself, like it's too much. It's too much. It's too much stress. So when we overextend and we take on too many things that's causing stress and sickness and anxiety and stuff, how can you say that you truly love yourself when you are causing this self-inflicting pain because of an idea of something, or you have to be here to help this person and do this, to do that you just neglect yourself? And I see a lot of that. And I just wanted to stop. So I know it has to start with me, and just like it starts with you. So if you start practicing and showing yourself more self-love through the choices that you make and the choices you don't make, you start to just change that energy within you. And then the next person does it, the next person, and the next person, and the next person, that you can get to with that person that doesn't even allow you to love them more than you love yourself, right? Like that's not even, that can recognize that and say, wait a minute. What about you? How is this making you feel? But if I make this decision, we make this decision, what is this with on here? It's just kind of really just looking at it in that sense. And now we're working together. This is where the real compromise, because it's a harmony that gets built between a family member or a best friend or a business partner or, a significant other. No one person is more important than the other one. That person's feelings and stuff are valid and important just as much as mine is. So how do we come together on this thing? How do we come together on this? So yeah, man, that had me in my feelings. Right? I just was like, I wanted to hug her so bad, and I wanted to just like slide in her DMs and just be like, can we talk? Can I help you? Can I help guide you? Can I point some patterns out to you just to give you a quick little cheat sheet? That's how I was feeling. And I don't know. I just know that we need to bring it back to ourselves. We need to bring that love back to ourselves, and then we can spread it outward. Until next time. Bye, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to Seeing with Your Soul. If something you heard resonated with you, feel free to rate, review, and share with others. If you are looking to go deeper, you can connect with Tisha Michelle on Instagram at Mindset Slayer or visit www.healingalignglow.com.